Yep.
All right, guys. My name is Amanda Pearce. I'm the owner of Funding for Good. I have been in the nonprofit world for since 1997, however many years that is. And so a lot of you were asking some questions in the chat earlier about certifications and if we need them. And back in the day, there wasn't such a thing. So people were like, where did you get your grant writing degree? And I'm like, oh, that didn't exist when I was in school because I'm old. So we, like Holly said, we gained experience from writing and doing things the hard way, the wrong way, learning, making improvements. And that's how people got to know us. That's how we learned and created our own success rates and all that stuff. And then I want to say back in the 2000s, things started coming around like CFRE and some of those things. And like Holly, I have mixed feelings about whether those are necessary, depending on the field that you're in. Funding for Good started out as a company called Grant Cruise, and I'm going to get into that a little bit today, and I'll kind of tell you where our journey took us. But I want to share with you about what grant writing consulting or grant consulting is, and if it might be right for you, and if you're doing it, some different ways you can think about your business and structuring it, and things you can offer or not offer. And so I encourage your questions. Holly knows a lot about my business. She'll be online a little bit here, but we also have to remember it's 12 a.m. in Guam. So Holly is a trooper for staying up at this hour. So if you have questions, fundingforgood.org is the place to go. We're going to talk about questions you need to answer before you take that dive full time, how to determine if it's time to take the next step, whether that next step is starting a part-time consultancy, whether it's taking a part-time business full-time. There's lots of different ways to take the next step, how to create your initial service list and price points, how does working for yourself differ from working for others, and how to diversify your income to create sustainability for yourself. A lot of these things are things we talk about in the nonprofit world as well. So we talk about diversifying income streams. We talk about how to have a great work-life balance. We talk about what you should be doing as a nonprofit. You don't have to do everything under the sun. So I alluded to it a second ago when y'all asked how I started my business, but I basically got scammed into success. There was a company that was using the name of a very well-known grant-focused entity, and they reached out to me from an ad they saw on Craigslist that I had posted about grant writing services, asked me if I could step in as an instructor for a session because an instructor they had a family medical crisis. And short story is I went to teach. I didn't get paid. They had shipped materials there. There were 20 people in the room who had each paid $500 to be there for a 2-day session. So the company made $10,000 and everything was done online. So shortly after I started teaching, the morning that I went, I didn't get any more email replies. I didn't have a number that people were picking up for. There wasn't an actual address for this organization. Everything had been done electronically. No one had receipts. Receipts had been taken from what I found out later was like restaurant phone numbers that could be moved around. This particular company had been reported to not really the Better Business Bureau because there wasn't a place to report them, but there was an online forum about all the people who had been scammed over the past decade from this company. And so I went home really depressed, and I had the materials for the workshop sitting on my dining room table. And as I walked past it every day for about 3 months, I finally realized, you know what, I can teach a better grant writing class than that. And that's how I started my business. And my very first grant writing class had 47 people in it from nonprofits around my community. And I charged $250 a piece. And I was ecstatic. I taught another one the next month and I had, 20 something people there. And I realized this is something I can do. This is something I'm good at. I've been writing grants for a long time. Not only can I teach people, but I can also have clients. So, and when I started my business, I had 2 things that I could do right off the bat. I could teach and I could do work for clients. So that's kind of how I got scammed into success. I still had a job while I started my business. And then I even took that, I had a part-time job at that time. And then I took a full-time job, was my last full-time job, while I grew my business. And when I got to the point that I was ready to go full-time, I had my legs under me, I had some clients waiting, I had a plan in place. I made that step about 6 months earlier than I planned to due to some conflict at work, because that never happens in the nonprofit world, right? But I did it. and I was successful. And I started in a place where I had to sit down and do the math and say, how much do I need to make a day in order to pay all my bills? And that's where I started with Funding for Good. It started out as a grant cruise back in the day when I was part-time, and it was consultation, research, education, and writing services. And then when we went full-time with the business, we changed the name, we became established, we started an S corporation, and we named it Funding for Good because we decided we were going to do a little bit more than just grants. And one of the things I learned very quickly was an expert is an ordinary fellow or consultant from any other town. A lot of you may have experienced that when you started your business, you had a couple of clients locally, but then everybody else wanted you to do stuff for free, or people were like, why would we pay her that? She lives here. She should do that discounted, or she should do that for free, or I know her. And so we very quickly learned colleagues of ours who were doing the exact same thing as us could come into our town and offer the exact same service for 10 times what we were charging, and people would pay for it. And it was exactly the same thing we were doing. We could go to their town and do the exact same thing, and people were paying us to do it. It's still the case today. We do have lots of regional and local clients, but still we battle that. Will you give us the discount because we're local? You don't have to travel, but you've worked with us forever, but you know our board chair, blah, 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 blah. As opposed to someone from California will pay us and all of our travel to go out there and do the exact same thing, and they will not argue about the price. So if you haven't experienced that yet, it's very possible that you will. And we just, we didn't know that was a thing until we became consultants. So where are you right now, right? Businesses are ever evolving, as they should be. So it doesn't really matter what stage of business development that you're in. You should be constantly evolving, strategizing, evaluating, working to grow for good. Taking the time to invest in yourself and your business strategy is going to pay dividends later, right? So you could be exploring the possibility of starting or growing a business. You could be planning to start or take the next step in your business. Maybe you're already consulting part-time or full-time, and maybe you have actually launched a business. So let's start a poll. Do one of you guys want to run the poll, or do you want me to do it? I don't mind either way. Actually, I don't really see that I have that option.
Yes, so. Yeah, only the host can
can
post it, so I'll do it.
Cool. So where are you right now in the process of your business? Are you just tossing around ideas? Maybe you have a little side hustle. Maybe you're juggling your side hustle and full-time work. Maybe you're ready to go full-time, or maybe you just went full-time. If y'all could run that, and we'll see where everybody is. And I'm not sure if I'm going to see that. So if somebody lets me know when that is posted. Mia, is it posted?
Yeah, it's not posted. I don't have the option either here.
They are blowing the chat though. Lots of side hustles coming in. We've made our own chat. Made our own poll in the chat.
So there's no poll, Ryan?
I don't think so.
I'm creating one now.
Okay, that's all right. If people are posted in chat, I believe there's another poll, maybe towards the end of the slides, if there's not one created for that, but that's okay. So I'm going to hop over into the chat for a quick second and see what people are saying. Tossing around ideas, just started, major side hustle. Just went full-time. Congratulations, Allison. Getting ready for full-time, Corey. Wonderful. Full-time with a full plate. Good job. Well, it looks like we have folks all over the board here today. That's awesome. Very, very cool. All right, so questions to answer before diving in full-time. Some of you are already there, so this might not be relevant to all of you, but what are your motivations, right? Why do you want to start a business, and why do you want to take it full-time? Are you looking for freedom? Now, somebody asked in the chat earlier, and I clarified that having your own business isn't freedom, but for me, the way I define freedom, which is going to be different for all of you, is I have the freedom to choose my clients. The very first time, 3 years into my full-time business, that I got to turn down a client was one of the happiest days of my business life. Because I was at a point where I was making enough and I had enough irons in the fire, as you say, and enough seeds planted that I didn't want to take this client. I didn't want to work with them, and I didn't have to. When I first started, that wasn't the case. So, the freedom to eventually get to that place where you can pick and choose your clients, pick and choose your organizations, pick and choose the type of nonprofits you work with was huge for me. Freedom to set my pricing, change my mind, decide I do want to offer a service, decide I don't want to offer a service, decide I want to add that service back again. All those things I've done as a business owner. And those types of freedoms are amazing. The freedom to say, you know what, my dog has cancer and I'm not working this week because he is my priority was a huge freedom for me when my first love of my life got sick during COVID. The freedom to say, you know what, we've never taught a ton of webinars. We've taught a lot of webinars, but never a ton of webinars during COVID. We taught 99 webinars during COVID, and it transformed our business and got us a lot of contacts we didn't have, put us in front of audiences we had never seen. I had the ability and the freedom to say, I do want to do that, or I don't want to do that, right? So in my world, I have a lot of freedom as a business owner. Does it also mean that I'm responsible when the website crashes and nobody can get registered for an event the day before it happens? Yes. So in those senses, maybe you're looking at that as a lack of freedom, right? But hopefully at some point when you grow your business, you can outsource some of those roles eventually, and then it won't be all on your shoulders. Time and flexibility. I want to be able to take my dogs for a walk in the morning before I start work, at lunch, anytime during the day. If I just decide like, hey, I've got an hour, I'm going to take my dogs for a walk. I got real tired of this mindset when I was working in nonprofits. I got tired of the mindset that this is what we need you to accomplish, Mandy. These are the goals and tasks that we have for you. This is what we need you to accomplish this year in your position. And I'm accomplishing all those things in 30 hours a week. But they needed me to be sitting in a seat at a desk for 40 hours a week just because, right? I didn't understand that mindset. I didn't like that mindset. If you can be super efficient and accomplish what you need to accomplish, I don't understand why you need to work a certain number of hours just because. So those types of flexibility and time were important to me. I have a very long list of things I have to do every week for my business. And if I finish them early, I'm not just going to be sitting at my desk waiting to see if an email comes in, you know? Scheduling options. This year I said, I'm not going to have meetings before a certain time of day because I want to sleep. I want to get up and cook my breakfast and have my hot tea and take my dogs on a walk and not be rushed about it. And that was something I just decided this year. We also decided we're not really working with clients on Fridays. We'll be working, be doing some stuff in the office, but not with clients, right? So I had that time and flexibility as a business owner. And that was a scheduling option for me. We close the second week of December through the second week of January every year because I like the holidays and I don't want to work at that time of year with other people. I just want to enjoy it. We also don't travel outside of the East Coast after September 1st because fall on the East Coast is amazing and it's my favorite time of year. So as a business owner, I can say that. We work with people all over the country the rest of the year, but if you want us in person, it has to be before September 1st, right? So for me, again, that's flexibility, that's scheduling options, that's me creating the lifestyle of my dreams. So you can do that when you become a consultant, right? It doesn't happen overnight. I couldn't say that 10 years ago, but now I can. So it was a goal of mine and I got to that. The ability to choose clients, the ability to make the money I want. Now, sometimes when Holly and I are working on our nonprofit consulting conference, sometimes people are all like, it's not all about money. And you're right, it's not for some people. But for some people, they quit their full-time jobs because they want to make more money. You have to know how to run a business in order to do that because there's expenses a lot of people don't think about. And so for me, it was, I want to retire early. Well, I can do that if I can control how much I make, how much I work, who I work with and for, and if I'm doing the things I love, right? Mind you, I'm saying this all from a place of over a decade of experience being in business, right? I learned a lot of things the hard way. When I first started my business, I thought, I got to do this, this, and this. And I don't like all of that, right? So I got to the point where I was like, I don't have to do that. I got other things I can do, right? And so you can do that too eventually, but you have to be able to say, what is it you do like? What is it you don't like? Where do you want to spend your time? What do you want to be doing from day to day? Fulfilling work with multiple missions. When you're an employee, typically you're working with one type of organization. Not always, but sometimes, most of the time. But when you're a consultant, you can work with lots of different organizations and you can work in all the areas that you're really passionate about if you get clients in those areas. And you can also, somebody was saying they worked from their, they worked from the road, they worked from a cruise, they wrote grants from a cruise, all these different things. It's a nomadic lifestyle if you choose for it to be, right? You can do grant writing from anywhere. What challenges are you wrestling with? go ahead and put in the chat box what you're wrestling with the most. Some people are like, I'm not good at selling myself. I don't want to be pitchy. I don't want to have to do that. Startup is overwhelming. It truly is. There's a lot of things to consider, right? Time management. A lot of people are really good in a structured environment where someone else is telling them what to do, when to take their breaks, what time their lunch can be, what time they have to show up, all those things. When you go to working for yourself, some people need their home office and that structure for them. That'd be me, right? I'm a self-motivator. I'm a self-scheduler. I'm a type A personality, 100%. I'm a checklister, all that stuff. I don't need someone else to tell me what to do. I'm already thinking about what I need to do on Friday this morning. Some people need to be able to go to a place to get work done. Marie, my business partner, is one of those. So she has a home office, but she doesn't do work well there. She needs to be in a place. So either a co-working space or a coffee shop or somewhere outside of her house. And some people really need an office. You could be any one of those. Imposter syndrome. People have a real hard time with that. And I'll go ahead and tell you, we all experience that. Holly and I have had this conversation, pretty much me and every colleague I have. I've just met Allison for the first time today, but I'm sure she's probably had this experience too. There are times in your career, even when you've been doing it for as long as we have, that you're like, are people really paying me for this thing? Are people really paying me this much for this thing? Are people really going to continue to hire me? What if I never get another client again? What if this is my last client? Like you have these lulls. There'll be times when you have all kinds of people reaching out to you and they want you to do work, and you might have to turn some people down or put them on a waiting list. And then there will be other times when you're like, is anybody going to email me? Is anybody going to call? Is anybody going to email me back? Right? That just happens. That is business. That is life. And I promise you, it doesn't matter how long you're in business, you're always going to have that imposter syndrome thing creep up occasionally. Right? I think it's healthy that you have that, because it keeps you on top of your game. It keeps you learning new things. And then a lot of people really struggle with the potential instability of being a sole proprietor or being a small business owner. You really don't ever know what's going to happen, right? The best we can do is to plan and plant seeds constantly, to build great relationships and partnerships, to network, and to be active wherever you're active. You might be active in your community locally. You might travel nationally and do conferences and that whole scene. Maybe you're active online on social media. I know a lot of the people I work with, we have a boot camp for consultants, and a lot of them are like, I don't want to do social media. I'm like, I totally get that. I don't either. I do it, but I don't want to do it. So that is how we create the most stability that we can, right? We can't control the economy. We can't control the thing we're offering and if people are going to need it or not. The best we can do is step back and punt, roll with the punches, and adjust our business as the situation requires, right? Like I said, Funding for Good wasn't all about 100 grant writing or any kind of fundraising webinars a year until COVID. And then if we wanted to stay in business and we wanted to get in front of people, that's what we had to do. And we did, right? We're not doing 100 this year because now everybody wants to be back in person again. So Holly had mentioned we do the nonprofit consulting conference together, and it's been online for 2 years. But this year we had a lot of people being like, when are you going to go in person? When are you going to go in person? And we decided, okay, we're going to try it, right? Well, the day that our 2-day online conference ended this year, which was last week or the week before, we opened up the online and the in-person conference for next year. We already have over 20 people registered for the in-person conference that doesn't happen until October of 2024, right? So as business owners, Holly and I were like, okay, yeah, people are ready to be back in person. And so now we're kind of like having to readjust our business plans again. So of those things, what else is holding you back? Maybe you're like, I don't know how to market. I don't know what to do about my business. I don't know how to market myself. I don't know where to put the marketing. I don't know what to say. Maybe you're worried about health insurance. I know a lot of people come to me with that question. I'm self-insured. I'm not doing anything through the marketplace. My husband doesn't work at a company. We own our own businesses, so he doesn't work at a company where I could be on his insurance. And so that's something that I had to build into the business expenses for my company, is knowing how much my health insurance was going to be, right? Clarity on the scope of work. Maybe you're like, I could do all these different things. And that's what we like to call the spray and pray method of business ownership. Put everything out there you could possibly do and hope people take something, right? As opposed to really honing in on what is it that you're great at, what's your unique brilliance, and what do you love to do? I'm really good at grant writing. It's not the thing I love to do all the time, right? So that's how we got started as a company. We still do lots of education on it. We still work with consultants who are grant writers. We still teach about it. We teach at conferences. We keynote about it. And we do have some grant writing clients, like the ones that I really love as human beings and organizations I still work with, but I don't take on new grant writing clients because it's not where I love to spend my time. I love to spend my time helping consultants grow their businesses. Marie loves to spend her time strategic planning. So we've kind of morphed our business from, we work with development directors, we coach them, we do all kinds of coaching work with boards, board development, board education, blah, blah, blah. And then we do online education, fundraising education, all those pieces. But the two areas that I love, love, love in my business, working with consultants and strategic planning. So we still do some of the other stuff, but we focus on these two niches that we love, which is why we're here today, right? We love that Instrumentl puts us on and is helping you guys decide, do I want a nonprofit grant writing business? If so, how do I start and grow it? And so that's why we're here, because that's the thing we love. Thinking about pricing is always hard. And I'll tell you, honestly, from the bottom of my heart, it's something I learned the very, very hard way. So when I first started, I'll give you a real life example of grant research. So when I started, I was doing grant research for $150. And it was back in the day before thumb drives were a thing, before you could send a whole bunch of files electronically and do all that stuff. So I was printing off research at the library using software and then making notes on all the papers, putting them in a 3-ring binder, meeting with clients, giving them all this information, right? And then when I started my business full time, I got a coach. And my coach offered to host my first webinar with me. Mind you, I'm petrified of new technology. Like, I'm really good at the stuff I've been doing for a while now. But when I first started, I was like, oh my God, technology. It's not my thing. So she hosted a webinar for me and she's like, I want you to teach my audience about grant research. I was like, okay, cool. And she's like, then at the end, I think you need to pitch your grant research services. I was like, okay. And she was like, how much do you charge? I said, $150. And she's like, I think we could charge $300. Mind you, she knew we could charge a lot more than that. She just didn't want me to be uncomfortable with the price. And so we charged $300. And I was like, you think people are really going to pay that? And she was like, yeah, probably. And I was like, okay. So we did it. Now she lives in Tennessee. So I drove from North Carolina to her house, which is about 3 hours away. And we went to her office and we did this. And I had 6 people sign up for grant research on the spot right at the end of the webinar. And I was like, oh my God, I just made $1,800. I drove home from Tennessee on literal cloud 9. If you've never seen what that looks like, it was me in the car coming down the mountain. I was blown away. And so for a couple of years, I left my price at $300. Then everything became digital and I started sending things to people virtually, and it just, got more professional. My deliverables got more concise and specific. And then I said, you know what? I think I'm going to raise my prices. I'm going to raise my prices to $500. See what happens. I had more people register for grant research at $500 than I ever had at any other price point. I was like, what? This seems weird. So a couple years after that, I was like, let's try $750, because I had started talking to some colleagues and I was seeing what other people were charging and what they were delivering. And I felt like our deliverables were pretty good and people were paying. So during the pandemic, our prices were $950 for grant research. And we had more people, I had 38 people register for grant research during the pandemic the first year, which was more than I had ever had. It was a huge line item in my budget for that year. And we had great deliverables. We were providing quality service. And like Holly pointed out, we were doing it even quicker than we ever were before, right? Because we've been doing it so long and we knew what we were doing and all the stuff. And so then I started doing some actual research, which should have been where I started, guys. I should have started with the research and development of my product, but I did not, because I didn't know. And so then I realized, after doing a lot of research, most companies, the base rate they were charging was $2,000 for grant research. And I was like, oh my word. Well, now we charge $2,000 for grant research. People still register. So that is to show you the lifeline of what can be learning how to price your products, learning how to value your hourly pricing, right? It doesn't come at the beginning for all of us. And sometimes you have to learn the hard way, like I did. But if you're working with some groups, if you're in a cohort, if you have a coach, whatever, these are the types of things that they should be supporting you with. Now, I'll also say, if you're a brand spanking new and you're like, oh my God, I'm going to charge $2,000 for grant research. Okay, maybe not, because you have to know what you're doing, what you're delivering, what the client needs, what your deliverables are. So I'm not telling everybody to start out your business charging what most people charge at the, the top end, but I'm telling you that to say you might be able to charge a whole lot more than what you're currently charging. So, okay. Some people are super scared to take the leap. That's scary. My brother gave me a loan for $8,000 the day I left my job full time. And I had about $8,300 in the bank when I went full time with my business. I needed $3,000 a month to pay all my bills and eat. Not eat extravagantly, just eat, right? So I knew I had less than 3 months worth of being able to make it when I went full time. So you all have your own individual insights as to where you are financially, what you can do, how much it takes you to live from month to month. But I'm just here to let you know that that wasn't a lot in the bank to take that big leap and go full time. But I can tell you that the amazing amount of stress that I was under working at my nonprofit, the way I was unhappy, the hours I wasn't able to spend at home, it was all worth it to take that leap. And the first year I was full-time in my business, part-time, I was making about $30,000 a year just with the part-time business and then my job. But full-time, the first year in my business, I made mid-60s. So like 64, 67, something like that, the first year. So the second year was 120s, and it just kind of went up from there. So I know that taking the leap is hard. And then there are other things. For everybody, there might be something very specific. So I'm excited to see the chat a little bit later, but if you guys have a very specific thing that you're like, this is the reason why I'm still hesitating, or this is the big thing that makes me nervous, go ahead and put it in the chat so other people can share. I'm sure we can all relate to a lot of those. So what role do you want to play in your consultancy? Do you want to be a coach, an educator, a facilitator? Maybe you want to have a team and you want to be a team member. A lot of people like to build communities. A coach really helps you discover answers, and a consultant provides with solutions and actually may roll up their sleeves to do work, right? So there's a difference. Think of your coach as your baseball coach. Hey coach, how do I hit this curveball? And they're going to grab the bat and they're going to go up there and they're going to say, okay, show me what you think you should do. Okay, show me what you are doing. Okay, show me, whatever. That's a coach, right? But a consultant is actually going to maybe take the bat and step to the plate and say, okay, this is how I would do it. Or this is how John does it on the other team. Or this is what I'm noticing that you do, and they show you, right? So there's a difference between a coach and a consultant, and you can be both, because we do both here at Funding for Good, and so does Holly. Maybe you want to be a process or system expert. Maybe you want to help people set up their grant writing teams, right? To put their tools in place, like Instrumentl, to figure out what your shared file system looks like, to figure out what tools you're using for specific pieces of the work. Maybe you have a time clock. Maybe you have, excuse me, maybe you have templates for how you put different pieces of your proposals together. Maybe you want to be a program designer, right? Maybe I love writing program designs that can get funded. So that's what I want to do with clients. We have a service for program template creation as well as grant template creation. And they're two different pieces. You have to have a program design before you can write a grant for it, right? Maybe you want to be a researcher. Maybe you want to put together research, prospect research. It's okay. Maybe you want to write foundation grants. Maybe you also are good at state and federal grants, or maybe you just want to do state and federal grant writing. Lots of people I know that are just foundation writers, and I have a couple of colleagues that literally all they do is federal grants and they love it. So thinking through, what are the things you want to do and what roles do you want to play? Maybe you want to be a reviewer, content expert. Like Holly said, she's been a grant reviewer. I've been a grant reviewer. There's a lot of different roles. So when Funding for Good had that, we called it document review services, and it was a service we provided. We will review documents for you. It could be a grant, doesn't have to be, but it could be. It could be a portion of a grant. Maybe you're going to review your executive summary or your letters of inquiry or whatever. So lots of different things that you need to consider. And then there's really 4 areas of work that you need to think through. clients, administration, marketing, selling, and then continuing education. So working for yourself, here's a reality check for you. It's all about your choices, right? You choose your clients, you make your schedule, you choose your services, you create new services, you eliminate services you don't want to do anymore. You pay yourself as needed, you have access to business dollars, you grant your own time off, and you create the schedule that works for your life. And it's also running a business. So all the things I just said are kind of the fun things that we all look forward to as business owners, but it's also work. And that's what I have to tell people a lot. You handle the administration until you make enough money that you can outsource it. You serve as a bill collector, you self-motivate, you plan, you market, you hire, you fire, you file taxes until you get to the point you can outsource as an accountant, which was the very first thing I outsourced. Pay payroll taxes, pay taxes on products or services, manage payroll, file state documents, update social media and website, plant seeds constantly, deal with crises as they arrive. You know, so there's like this super fun, glamorous side of it where we get to do all the things we want to do. But then there's the side where you really do have to be a business person and run the business. So I'll tell you two things about that. One, if you know right now, if I asked you, tell me what it is about having your own business that appeals to you, and you said all the stuff on the left, and then I said, yeah, that's what appeals to most of us, but are you good with running the business as well? And if you say to me, I don't really want to do that stuff, no, that doesn't sound fun to me at all, and you don't have the money to outsource it, running your own business might not be for you. It's like when somebody comes to me and was like, oh my God, I have a great idea, I want to start a nonprofit. Immediately, I just want to roll my eyes and be like, oh my God, another one of those, right? Because most of the people that want to start nonprofits don't want to start nonprofits. What they want is they want to do the work they enjoy. They don't want to run the business. And that's why a lot of nonprofits close their doors. 30% of nonprofits that are started close their doors every year because financial instability. Well, if you don't know how to run a business, you're obviously not going to be financially stable. And so that's a big indicator that maybe you either have to say, okay, I'm going to do it for the first couple of years with a goal being, I'm going to outsource these things. This is first, this is second, this is third. This is how much I need to make in order to do that. As long as it's part of your business plan and you know you can get it off your plate pretty soon, great. But if you're like, yeah, I don't want to do that, that'd be Marie. And she'll be the first to tell you, the person I work with, she doesn't want to run a business. She hates the administrative stuff of running a business. She doesn't want to have to collect money. She doesn't want to have to remember to do something on the website. She doesn't want to have to be up at 11 o'clock at night when the website crashes the day before a launch or during a launch. That kind of stuff she doesn't want to deal with. She doesn't want to have conflict. So when a client decides to be difficult, she does not want to have to be the one to call them. Me, I could care less. I'm like, yep, happy to call. So thinking through that is a self-assessment for you, because it's like I tell my nonprofits, nonprofit is a tax status, not a business model. For-profit is a tax status and a business model, and you need to be able to run your business, not just to provide the services of the business, right? Then we have to think about our ideal clients. So what are ideal clients and how do we find them? Ideal clients vary by person. Your ideal client is not going to be the same ideal client as mine, right? So some things that are similar with all ideal clients are you have an organization with a need, right? If they don't have a need, they're probably not an ideal client for you because you're providing a service. What geographic area do you want to be working within? I have worked with a lady in California that likes to write grants for arts organizations. Well, as we started working together, she said, I only want to work with arts organizations in California because that's what she was comfortable with. She didn't want to have to get to know foundations in other states. That was what her niche was going to be. And then I've worked with other consultants who are like, I want to work with organizations working on, animal welfare anywhere in the country. And so what is your geographic focus? Funding for Good works with clients based in the US. So nonprofit organizations based in the US. Now, I've worked with consultants that are not based in the US, but they have to be serving organizations within the US. And I don't know anything about setting up a business in another country. So if you're coming to me as a consultant asking me, how do I set up a business in Africa? I got no idea. And I'm very honest about that. Right? I'm not trying to be the expert at how to set up a nonprofit consulting company in every country in the world. Budget. If an organization is a startup, that might be your ideal client. You might love working with startups. I have a colleague, that's her ideal. She loves to work with startups and founders. Me, I'd rather work with an established organization that has a history of success and a budget to pay me for the work they want me to do. Some people like to work with the largest organizations that have really high-end agendas. That's not so much my priority, right? What is your priority? Mission service area. Is there a focus? We work with organizations of all types of missions. We don't have a niche area when we work with nonprofits. Maybe you do. Maybe you want to work with homeless shelters. Maybe you want to work with animal welfare organizations. Maybe you want to work with habitats. Maybe, like there could be any number of organizations that are your niche. What's the leadership profile? Do you want an organization that you're working with a board because they don't have paid staff yet? Or do you want to work with an organization that has an executive director and staff? So Funding for Good doesn't report to boards of directors. We work with executive directors or one identified person on a board. Every consultant is different. Organizational dynamics. What are those like? Have they filled out a grant readiness checklist for you? Do you know if they're even ready for that particular writing service? Or maybe you need to start with them in a different place. Maybe you need to do an assessment with them and kind of get them grant ready. Holly alluded to that. That can be a service that you offer. Who is your direct report? Like, who are you reporting to directly? So the next thing we talk about is money, right? How much do you need to make? A lot of people are not going to know the answer to this question right off the bat, but these are the things that we ask immediately in order to determine how much are we going to charge for your services? How are we going to determine your hourly rate? Because we very much believe in hourly to project-based billing. If you have to start hourly, or that's just the only place you're comfortable, start there. That's fine. But we want you to eventually get comfortable with project-based billing, right? Because it values your experience and expertise and time much more. In order to create that, you need to know, how much do we need to make a year? How much do we need to make a quarter? How much do we need to make a month, a week, a day, right? So once you know how much you need to make a year, you can break the rest of that down. And you think about things like, hey, I need to make $60,000 this year, and I'm going to take 2 weeks off. So that's $60,000 over the course of 50 weeks, not 52. And I really want to work 4 days a week, right? So then you take out another day and you figure out how many days is that in a year, and then you divide it by how much you need to make. And you're like, okay, I need to be averaging this much a day or this much a week, a month, blah, blah, blah. Then we talk about breaking down your services. Okay, if you have 10 clients at this rate for research, and you have 4 writing clients who are on retainer for $2,000 a month for 6 months minimum, blah, 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 it becomes much easier to create your business plan and project what are you going to be able to bring in as a company to meet all your goals, right? And so then we take that a step further and we talk about, okay, this is how much you need to make. Now, how much do you want to make? And we create, this is what you have to do just to be able to pay your bills and get by and do all the things that you have to do. This is how much you need to make if you want to do some of these other things, right? So I have a link I'll share with you at the end, but we have a set of webinars that we teach for consultants. And right now it's in a package, and it's normally $397 for all 7 of the webinars, but we reduced that to $197 just for you guys for this week. And one of the webinars in there is how to transition from hourly to project-based pricing. And we break down all of this and how to do it in a 1.5-hour webinar. So we'll talk about that at the end. So these are some things you're going to want to think about as you determine your business budget, right? Some parameters to consider. You want to think through your current household expenses and how much you need a month to cover those, right? How long will your average contract cover? What services will you bill monthly? What recurring revenue can you count on? Like, do you have a membership program? Do you have a cohort? Do you have a group that you're working with in some way? Will you have one-off service offerings? So like if you go to Funding for Good's shop page on our website, you'll see things like grant research. People can go online and register for grant research anytime. Automatically sends them a grant research questionnaire, comes back to me. We have a call, we start the research, we schedule a follow-up, I review it with them, boom, done. They don't have to have a contract. I don't have to have any kind of commitment from them. They pay for the service before I do the work. And so there's lots of things that you can offer that are service-based that don't require a contract from you for long-term work. So how are you going to provide your offerings to your clients? And then new business costs. So if you're thinking about starting or you're brand new, you're going to want to think about, does your state require a consulting license for the type of consulting you're wanting to do? If so, how much does it cost? You're going to need to renew that every year. Or does the client that you're working for, does their state require it? So like when I work with clients in Florida, they require a license for the work that I do down there, and I have to pay for that every year if I'm working with a client in that state, right? And then I have to file that with the state in Florida so they have it on record. Same in North Carolina. North Carolina requires it. There's some states that don't require any type of consulting license, like Tennessee doesn't anymore. They removed that a couple of years ago. Wyoming doesn't. I think it's either Nevada. It's either California or Nevada, but I think it's Nevada. So there's several states that don't require one, but you can go to Harbor Compliance online, and they give you information on every state and what they require and how to find information on those individual licenses. Office equipment, computer, modem, printer, lights, camera, etc. Like, what are you going to need? If you're going to be doing webinars, you might need a camera. I've got one on my computer right now that I use just for this because the camera computer is not so good. Sometimes when we record stuff for our YouTube channel, we have that big round circular light my husband got me for Christmas a couple years ago, just to make it look better, right? Could be different things you need for your business. Maybe you need systems like Instrumentl software, right? That becomes a business expense because you're using it for your work. Website fees, maybe your server, development of your website, URL, hosting, maintenance, all that kind of stuff. Travel costs, are you traveling to work with clients? Materials for services, depending on what you're doing with your clients and what you're providing for them, maybe you're paying for materials. If you have insurance that you need for your business, maybe you're outsourcing some things in your contractors. So it could be designers, partners, accountants, internet technology folks, copywriters, virtual assistants, other. Maybe you have lawyer fees and state fees for filing business license, bank charges for your bank accounts. So if you're taking online payments, a lot of times there's fees associated, always there's fees associated with that. So you want to make sure you're calculating that type of thing. System fees. So if you have like systems such as emails, website platforms, search engines, memberships, subscriptions, all that stuff, you want to be taking those into consideration as you think about your business and the cost of running it. So those are some parameters to think about. And then we think about billing options. You know, how much are you comfortable charging? If you aren't comfortable with what you're billing, your client won't be either, which is probably why my coach that first time said, let's charge $300 for your research, because that was double what I had been charging. And if she had said something like $1,000, I'd be like, oh my God, nobody's going to pay that. And then I wouldn't believe it when I tried to sell it at the end of the webinar, right? So you have to be comfortable with what you're charging, or your client will sense your hesitancy. I know that sounds crazy, but I can tell you a lot of times when people don't believe in their pricing, this is what happens. So that's going to be $1,200 a month for 6 months. But I mean, it includes this and this and this and this and this. And, you know, you're going to be able to bring anybody you want on, and you like to try to convince them of the price instead of believing in it yourself and being like, okay, that's going to be $1,200 a month. And if you decide to move forward, these are the next steps. So those are wildly different conversations. And I promise you that your clients sense your hesitancy. So don't go to a price you're not comfortable with yet, because eventually you'll get there. Eventually you'll be like, oh my God, my time is worth so much more than this. Or, oh my gosh, I've been doing this for so long, I feel like I should be making more. And when you get to those places, you're gonna be like, yeah, I can definitely go up on my price. And the second you get one person to pay for it and you know they valued it, you're gonna be like, yeah, I've always been worth this. I just wasn't ready to charge for it yet. So you got to think about, how much time does it take you to provide the service? And when I say time, I don't mean it took me 10 hours to write the grant. I mean, it took me 10 hours to write the grant. I had at least 2 or 3 hours of email communications back and forth. We did 3 edits. We had 2 Zoom calls, blah, 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 blah. It was actually 16 hours of my time, right? The prep, the review, the consultation call, the blah, 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 whatever you haven't already charged for. It's all of that. Because Marie used to do our template creation services. And originally she was like, it takes me about 10 hours. And I'm like, okay. So she did it for a while at our original rate. And I was like, are you making enough on this? Because I feel like it's taking I mean, I see all the emails that come back and forth. I feel like it's taking you a lot longer than 10 hours. And she'd be like, I'm like, are you counting the time that you're spending on the phone with these people and the emails that are going back and forth and the different questions and the blah, 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 blahs? And she's like, I never really thought about including that. I'm like, well, do you have to do that stuff in order to provide the service? And she's like, well, yeah. then why isn't it included in the number of hours that we're billing them for? Like, we're really billing them for, you know, 2/3 of the time it takes you to do the work. And so we raised the price. Nobody complained about the price. And now she actually felt like she was getting compensated for the amount of time that she was putting into it. So think about the time it takes you to provide the services, right? When you're starting and you're just creating a service, you can't bill your client for the time it takes you to learn the process, to create your process. So you got to think through that too. That's not really fair. But as soon as you do, then you'll be making really good on all of your other clients. Materials you're going to need, right? So somebody says something about charging for, or the client paying for their Instrumentl subscription. Well, here's the thing. If you're going to have an Instrumentl subscription and it's going to cost you, I have no idea how much it costs, but let's just say $100 a month. I've got no idea. Then that's $1,200 a year, right? And so let's say that you're going to use it for all of your grant writing clients. And let's say you have 4 grant writing clients a year. Well, you have to think through, are they all 1-year contracts, system of contracts, whatever, and then you take a percentage of that fee for each client based on their percentage of time that is going to be used. So if you have a client that's for the whole year, or let's just say they're all for the whole year and you have 4 clients, then you're going to divide $1,200 by 4, and you're going to add that to the project cost of each one of those clients because they're the ones using that particular system, right? And then it's covered and it's paid for. But if you're doing project-based billing, they're not seeing the breakout of that. They're benefiting from it, but they don't need to know that entire breakdown. Retainers. Are you going to bill people on retainer? Or are you going to bill them by the month after you do the work, which is a great way to not get paid for the work you do. Flat-based. So you're going to create one price and say, so for strategic planning, we have a flat-based price for strategic planning plus travel. So depending on where you are, depends on how much the travel is. That's the only variable. The base cost for strategic planning is the same for every single client in the country, right? And so they pay 50% up front and 50% the first day of the retreat that we're there in person. Flat base, doesn't change for any client. So depending on the type of services you're offering, you may have something like that. Value-based, I find that much harder to calculate. So I don't really do that as a consultant, but there may be consultants in the room that do. So you guys might want to ask some questions for them. So consultants don't have all the answers. What they have is value and fresh perspectives, experience, knowledge, and connections. I have a client who said to me, we don't hire you as our consultant because you know all the answers. We hire you as our consultant because you know where to find them, right? So sometimes I do pick up the phone and call my consulting friends. I'm like, hey, I've got a client who has this thing. I don't know the answer. Can you help me? I had a coaching call with someone, and they asked me this very specific question that I felt like I knew the answer to, but I called a colleague of mine who I know has just gone through the very exact same experience. And I was like, hey, this is what I'm thinking. What do you think? Blah, blah, blah. And we kind of tossed some ideas back and forth, and it helped prepare me for that call even more, because I don't ever assume I have all the answers. I have a lot of experience, but I don't have all the answers, right? So thinking through your unique brilliance will kind of help you in your business determine where you should focus on your time. Thinking through, what are you good at and what do you like? What do you not like, but you're good at? What are you not good at and you like? And then what are you not good at and you don't like? So we usually have people do this little matrix and write the answers in. It might be like, I hate social media. I'm good at it, but I hate it. Or I'm not good at it and I don't like it, whatever. Whatever things you have listed in the top 2 boxes, like the top half of this page, are the things you should focus on. And eventually you should work towards outsourcing the things on the bottom, because they're not your unique brilliance. Someone else can do them better and quicker, and they're not things you love, right? So when you're able to focus on the things you're really good at and the things you love, you'll be able to make more money as a company and you will enjoy your business more. So that's a little exercise that you can do if you're thinking through what to offer. And here's just a couple of other questions to consider. When would you like to ideally start, whether it's part-time or full-time? Which services will you start with? Where will you advertise, or how will you share about your business? Do you have a list of current potential clients? Have you chosen a business structure, LLC, S Corp, DBA, whatever? How much do you need to make? How much do you want to make? How will you select clients? So consultations, referrals, web-based evaluations, are you going to have an intake form? Like, what are you going to do to say, yes, I want to work with this person? What needs to be in your business plan? What is required by your state for contracts and before you can provide services? What does a potential client need for you to legally work with them in your state and their state? And what's your capacity? You know, some people in here earlier were being like, I'm full and I'm at capacity. So what is your capacity to take new clients? Once you figure that out, you can talk about how to diversify your income streams. What can you do? What do you want to do? Make a list of 50 things that you could do today to make money. And I know you're like, oh my God, 50 things. It's the very first activity my very first coach had me do, and it was phenomenal. I had 50 things. I picked out the top 10, and then I broke it down to the 5 I wanted to do the most. I started with those, and then I evaluated them. I liked this, I'm going to keep doing it. I didn't like this, I'm going to not do it again. And then I go back to that list of 50 and I pick the next thing I want to try, and I throw it in there, and I went from there. And I was able to create lots and lots of different things to offer through my business. You know, where I started was grant writing, grant research, proposal reviews, so document review services, program design, template design. We had a program called the Writer's Block, where we worked with people in a community online for a couple of years. We did in-person trainings. We spoke at conferences and did keynotes. We were coaches. We were consultants. We wrote books. We had on-demand products. We taught online and in person. Then we started transitioning over to strategic planning, board development, meeting facilitation. And so, you know, it's grown over the years, and we didn't start doing all of those things. We started doing grant writing and research, the basics. So I hope that this has inspired you in some way, whether it's to say, I don't want to do this, or I'm so excited to move forward. Have you guys had a chance to set up this poll by any chance? Yay, there it is. Okay, so are you ready to take the next step to establish or grow your consulting business? Absolutely, you're not sure, or you don't think you're ready. And I'm excited to see where everybody is. While I take a sip of water. And I'll let you guys just decide. If we get to like 80% or something, that's good. And then just if you'll share those and let everybody kind of see where everybody else is in the room. How's it looking? Mia, Ryan, how's it looking?
Almost 130, about 50% so far. Get your votes in, folks.
Yep, so looks like most people are absolutely ready to start their own consulting business. And then we have a lot of undecided people who are not yet sure.
Well,
And
you're here if you're not sure, because you're hearing for some very experienced folks that can answer a lot of questions for you today and on the next one. And if you haven't already put it on your calendar, go ahead and plan to be at the next one. It's you know, coming up in a couple of weeks, but it'll be another great set of 3 speakers. All right, if you want to end that poll, we'll move on to the next slide.
yep, we ended the poll now.
Oh, that's awesome. Perfect. Okay, cool. All right. So for those of you that do think you're ready to take the next step, we have guides to grow your business. And I talked with my team, and we decided to put these $200 off for this week for you guys. So if you would like to grab these, it's this session, and then it is also SEO for your business, what it is and do you need it, transitioning from hourly to project-based pricing, time-saving tools and systems for your consulting business, bookkeeping and accounting basics, what every small business owner should know, from struggle to success, actions and mindset shifts to grow your consulting business, and then 3 critical steps to take before you create an online course. So there's a lot of great content here. You're going to get about 10 hours, maybe 11 hours of sessions, and you'll have them through the rest of the year. So December 31st. If you're interested, I think you guys might have the link for that. If you can throw it in the chat, that would be wonderful. And then there's the link right there. And then I am ready to take questions, I think, if there are any.
Oh, are there ever? We have some just some housekeeping. If you really have a burning question, throw in those through hashtags so we can surface it. But we had a lot of questions coming throughout your presentation that would be great to circle back to. Starting with now Stephanie in the chat, if you're still here, you had like a lot of great questions. So we'll start with one of them. She says, this is back to rates and charging. She says, I have a problem with not charging enough because I have a bleeding heart. I accepted a proposal for something that my values didn't quite align with, but I needed the work. It was after that when I realized that maybe consulting wasn't for me. Is there any advice? This isn't really a question. This is more of just her perspective, but do you have any advice for other people that may be going through something similar to this?
Yes, the heart doesn't pay the bills.
Succinct.
Yep.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, that was all.
Shay had a question about what the deliverables look like when you're talking about your grant research. She had, what did she say here? She has no experience with that, no idea on what she would deliver. So we'd love to get some advice from you on what you would include in a grant research report.
Oh, in a grant research report, it's a little different than deliverables, but in the report part, we actually list everything from the foundation name to the contact person, their phone number and email, or the website, the due dates, deadlines, what they fund, any notes about that particular funder that are specific to the organization requesting the research. And those are all in a template that we have that becomes we call it our grants timeline. And then we have deliverables that are outside of that as well. So if you actually go and look at Funding for Good's shop page, you'll see the grant research product. And if you open it, you can actually read the deliverables there. And that's one of the things that we do in our boot camp. We have a boot camp for consultants. Our next one, actually, we have 3 spaces open and it starts September 18th. It's individual work one-on-one, but sometimes when people come to us and they're like, I want to offer grant research, or I want to offer template creation, or I want to offer whatever the thing is, we work with them to create their deliverables, their intake processes, and kind of figure out what that looks like. So it's a process and everybody has different deliverables, but that will give you an idea literally of what our research product looks like, because we don't have to customize it. It's a specific deliverable and it's a specific service we offer and anybody can register for it. So it's a little bit easier to create, but that's a good question. And I would do the same thing. I would go to other consultants' websites and see, are there things they have? Our shop page is a little more robust than a lot of consultants. And if you go there, you'll see why. But you can kind of see how other people are phrasing things and how other people are saying they work and how they onboard clients. And it's like R&D, research and development. Look at what other people are doing. It's market research. How are other people phrasing it? What are other people saying they do? And it will give you a good idea for like, what should I offer? What can I offer? What makes sense for me? What am I comfortable with?
Great. We had a question from Ginny about how would you go about outsourcing things in your business? I know the thread kind of blew up into a few different topics. Holly recommend hiring interns for things like social media. Do you have any recommendations or advice regarding what to delegate and how to go about doing it?
I would delegate the things that show up in the bottom of that chart that I showed you, the things that are not your unique brilliance. That's where I would start with delegation. I would also think through, of those things, what's the thing that takes the most time, and delegate that first because it frees up more time for you to be in your business. And then working with virtual assistants has always been good for me personally. And Holly and I actually met, I hadn't met them until this year. One of the largest virtual assistant companies in the country is Rock Solid Assistants. Tracy Harwood is the owner, and they have don't quote me, but I think it's over 150 virtual assistants around the world work with them. And they have a very specific, meticulous process to determine who they're going to work with and how to pair them with a virtual assistant. They don't take everybody that comes to them, but that's one place that I know you can look. I have a virtual assistant that I met by happen chance, just randomly. And that's not even what she does for a living. She just likes to work with my company. And then my web developer does an amazing amount of stuff for me. Like at the beginning of this session today, the product right here, it wasn't showing for sale in our shop page. It was still showing full price. I was like, it's supposed to be for sale. So I had to like step away and call her and be like, can you please fix that? Because that's what she does for me, because I don't know how to fix it. And then about 5 minutes before I got on to present my session, Holly was like, did you know that the link isn't showing the right image? And I was like, oh my God. So I had to call Ann back and be like, it's showing the wrong image. Can you fix that too? So like that kind of stuff is what my team on the back end does for me. And so, I mean, I love virtual assistants because I don't want employees, but that's a me thing. That's a Mandy doesn't want to grow her company in that way. And that's something that you have to decide. Some people love to have a big team and they want to have employees and departments and all the things. Me, I like to have contractors and I like to outsource people to work with me.
Fantastic advice. Shima had a great question. She was asking initially, how long should she set aside per week and expect to take in terms of months to do the business development piece? I think maybe to paraphrase, she's asking how much time should she be spending on client work versus growing her business?
I think that depends on your business goals. There's not a set, you have to spend 10 hours a week on your blah, 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 right? It's like going to the gym. How long should I be in the gym? Well, it really depends on what your goals are. If your goals are to compete in a bodybuilding competition, that's wildly different than if you're just trying to lose 5 pounds by the end of the year. So I'd have to know a little bit more about your business to be able to answer that specifically.
Great. Okay. Last question. If you have it, we'll drop it in the chat. But if not, give you 5 seconds, and then we've got a couple more that I could grab from here. Last call. Last call.
Great. Thank you so much, both Mandy and Ryan. So Ryan, you can wrap up the recording and I'll